How do I figure out what's next in my career? How do I align my work with what truly matters to me? And the biggest question of all, can I really design a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to come at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I've seen how traditional paths can leave people burned out or boxed in. And I know there's a better way, one that invites you to let go of outdated rules and outside expectations, one that evolves and supports meaningful growth over time. Whether you're feeling stuck, craving more clarity, or ready to expand within your current role and beyond, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to explore practical, modern strategies for building a meaningful, heart-based career. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy, and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and I'm thrilled to be here for season 10. This season is all about flourishing together. We have a full lineup of heartfelt, insightful conversations with incredible guests. Each episode is a curated conversation designed to inspire and uplift, and also offer practical wisdom to help you flourish in your career and beyond. Today, I'm so delighted to introduce you to Linda Grizely. Linda is a financial educator, keynote speaker, dry-humored realist on a mission to help women stop putting themselves last financially and emotionally. Based in Northern Illinois, Linda blends her background in financial planning with lived experience, soulful honesty, and just enough Gen X sarcasm to keep it real. After becoming a single mom at 16 and later rebuilding her life post-divorce, Linda knows what it feels like to be behind and what it takes to start again. Her core belief is that you can't budget for your whole life if you don't start with yourself, which prompted the creation of her signature keynote, "You can't build a life you love on a budget you hate." That belief also led her to create MeMoney, which is a mindset-first framework that flips traditional budgeting from guilt and scarcity to clarity and self-prioritization. Her work is rooted in both practical tools and emotional truth, offering a refreshing approach to financial growth that feels doable and deeply personal. And my goodness, we could use more of this in the world. Linda, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jen. And that was a lot about me. So thanks for sharing all of that.
Yes, of course. I love your story and your background and the work that you do. And I love how we met too. So fun fact, listeners, Linda and I met in person at a conference. So shout out to the Thrive conference. And I was immediately drawn to Linda because of her amazing use of color and style. So her hair, her glasses, her outfit, it was all in this perfect harmony. And I couldn't not compliment her. And then we became friends throughout the conference. So just a little fun backstory there. So Linda, let's begin by hearing more about that lived experience. So tell us about a time that you felt disconnected from your own financial confidence and what helped you.
There are so many times, Jen. So I started my career in financial planning like in my late 40s. And actually, I might have even been 50 by the time I started it. So pretty much my whole entire life before that is where I felt disconnected, right? So I was, like you shared part of my story. I was a single mom at 16. I was then married and then was married for over half of my life and got divorced in my late 40s or mid 40s. So I think that the biggest time I felt disconnected was after getting divorced, because it was like I was always very good with money. I was responsible. I was doing the right things, but yet I just didn't have the right guidance or the right framework, because I could live within my means, but I wasn't saving money. And after getting divorced, you have a different lifestyle that you're used to. And I was reentering the workforce, and what happened was that I wasn't earning enough money. I wasn't making enough to get ahead. I was actually going backwards. So that was a pivotal point in my life when I needed to make a big change. And I would say that was the biggest point in time where I felt disconnected with my money. And one of the key parts about that, which we can dig into whichever direction you want to go from here, but one of the key parts about that was when so I worked little bits here and there while I was married, but for the majority of the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. And I actually started a business though while I was married too, and had to close that when I got divorced because it wasn't making enough money yet because it was a startup and everything. But my point here is the biggest disconnect was when I was looking for a job, I said to myself in my own head, like, or even actually said it out loud, I just want to make the same amount of money I was making when I left the workforce, like, 11, 12, 13, however many years ago it was. And that's the story I was telling myself. And so you hear people talk about the stories you're telling yourself. That was the story I was telling myself. I just want to make the same amount I made back then. And you know what? That was ridiculous because knowing what I know now and knowing what I know about money, like, the time value of money, inflation of money, why on earth was I setting myself at that level? That's what I thought it was worth. And guess what? That's what I got. So that was the biggest disconnect that I had. And so the mindset part of it was really a big thing for me.
Yeah. There are so many stories, and I work with folks that are making career changes, and money always comes up, and that mindset and that story that we're telling ourselves. And you can't change the story until you recognize the story. So can you just share real quick, how did you recognize that that was the story you were telling yourself?
I'm not even sure that it happened in an instant. I think it took a bit. And part of my story is that the job that I was in was there was it was a toxic place, and I went to work with a pit in my stomach every day. So not only was I not making enough money to survive, I was miserable in the job. I loved the actual job. The actual job was I thought was my dream job, and I loved it. But I think that it wasn't until after I left that job, and part of my story is I quit that job. I went back to school. And I took out a home equity loan. I cashed in a retirement fund. This is before I was a financial planner, but I did all these things. And I'm like, something big needs to change because I'm not able to get into a job without a bachelor's degree. And I couldn't check the little box. And I was trying to do it without networking because I didn't want to tell people because I didn't want them to fire me. So there was all this stuff going on. But during that process of recreating myself after I left that job, was when I really started my internal personal growth journey, when it finally clicked that I had to be introspective and really understand what was going on in my head. And not only my head, but other people around me to understand how people worked and why they were doing the things they were doing or why they acted the way they did. And that was when I started to figure out that I was part of it was me holding me back and part of it was others holding me back. And then I was understanding why I was holding myself back and why they were holding me back and the different things that I needed to do to put myself in a different space, both physically and emotionally.
That introspection is where it starts. You're not going to change anyone else around you until you start with yourself. And so understanding what's happening here first and taking the time to be self-aware and I always call it peeling back that onion to figure out what's really going on. And then being able to make the adjustments, make the mindset shifts, make the strategy shifts to be able to move forward and then have those conversations with others. So is there one thing that you did to help yourself when you went through that introspection and that kind of peeling back the onion? Is there a mindset shift or one thing that helped you the most to kind of get through this recreation of yourself?
Well, so the introspection part and the looking at myself started from a mastermind that I went to on one of John Maxwell's books. And
nice.
it was specifically the thing that was the light bulb. And I don't even want to say it was a light bulb. It was it lit me on fire. And it was the thing that started the whole thing oh my God, I need to figure this out. I need to look inside myself. I need to figure out what other people was the story of the law of the lid. Now, the law of the lid talks about what your ability is to lead and that you have a number. Let's say you're, on a scale of 1 to 10, what your ability is to lead. And that if that's your ability to lead, you can only lead others to that level. So it talks about that. And without going too much into that, the person that was doing the mastermind group added in a story about fleas in a jar. And it could be the elephant with the peg or whatever, but it's all about your level. So the fleas in the jar story is that fleas can jump super high, but if you put them in a jar and you put a lid on the jar, they'll only jump, they'll keep hitting the lid. And then when you take the lid off, they'll just stay and they'll only jump as high as the lid. So this is talking about like what they've been taught, what their story is that they've been told is that they can only jump as high as the lid. So what this story is supposed to be teaching you is that you have internal blocks and mindsets and beliefs that keep you down. But what I learned was completely different. I mean, I did learn that part too. But what I learned was, holy cow, I've been in a jar with a bunch of fleas and I'm the one who keeps saying, hey guys, we can jump out. And everybody else is like, no, get back down in the jar. And I was like, that is what, like, I'm getting like all like goosebumps and teary eyed just talking about it. That was so huge for me. It was like, it was just so like mind blowing. And then I was like, oh my God, there's so much more here. And you talk about peeling back the layer of the onion. That's when I started reading I started with John Maxwell. I did Think and Grow Rich. I did The Tipping Point. I did all the classics, right? And those books became my mentors. The people that I never had in my life that were there to tell you like how to think bigger, how to look inside yourself. I'd never had people like that. So all those books became that for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that and being so open. Because it's true, when you surround yourself, and there's a community that I'm part of that calls folks like the John Maxwells of the world, and even people that you meet, coaches and mentors along the way, like these expanders, like you can only see as far as the ceiling, and if you're hanging out with the fleas, you're only going to know how to be a flea. You have to see to believe and expand. And, thank goodness for John Maxwell and the amazing work that he does. And the fact that you attended this mastermind and you were able to start to see to believe what's beyond that glass ceiling or that lid that was holding you back. And, look at you now. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And I know a lot of folks are going to be able to relate to that. Now, in your work helping other women, what do you think keeps smart, capable women and people feeling so anxious about money?
There's a lot of reasons. The first reason is that money is like our breath. It's constantly there. No, even when you're sleeping, you're spending money. You're heating your home, you're cooling your home, you're powering your phone, everything. So money is always with us, just like our breath is. And so being that connected to it, yet feeling so disconnected because we weren't taught to talk about money. We were taught to not talk about money. Don't talk about money. It's bad to talk about money. So there's like this conflict in our own heads about money. And then not only that, it's all the struggles that we go through about understanding our own worth. I've had my own struggles with that. I shared one of them with you. There's many more. Struggles about your own worth, about understanding it, about feeling like you're never doing enough. And also not everyone, but all these, it could be people, it could be things, it could be the media, whatever, trying to tell you what you're supposed to be doing with money that doesn't mix your real life into it. So you're like, yeah, but that's not my real life. Real life isn't that way. I know I should be doing that, but I can't because of this, or like this doesn't fit into the way my life is going right now. So there's just so many disconnects and so much around it. Like it's just huge.
It is. And I think all of those stories, the stories you grow up with, the stories that you're served from media, the stories from your friends and the people that you're hanging out with, there's so much there. And I think the energy around money is changing a little bit, at least in the workforce and the things that I'm seeing with salary transparency. And at least the conversation is shifting a tiny bit, but it's still very anxious and it brings on all the feelings. And now I'm just going to share with folks. So you have a quiz where you can learn your money personality. And I took that quiz in preparation for this. And I was the avoider. And this definitely resonates with me because yes, of course, I pay my bills, all the things, but I don't really want to look at the money in the bank account. I don't really want to pay attention. Obviously, having my own solopreneurship here, I have to do that. I do at least once a month. But it causes some anxiousness. So anyways, I don't know. I just thought I would share that. And any thoughts you have about the quiz or your money personality or the avoider that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So the avoider, like you, is obviously someone who avoids money, but I mean, it could be for many reasons. Like you just don't like to think about it because it might be you might think it's too complicated, like you just don't understand it. It might be boring to you, like it's just not interesting, or it's stressful, especially maybe for a solopreneur. Like I'm not sure what your reason is, but there's lots of different reasons that you could be an avoider. It might be that, your parents thought about money when you were younger. So you witnessed like this negativity around money. So you just stay away from it. I mean, that would be a natural reaction to try to stay away from something if that was negative. But all of these things are unique to a person. So just because you came up as an avoider, if someone else comes up as an avoider, like your reasons for it could be so vastly different. But the idea behind being an avoider is that you're not necessarily letting money define your choices. Like you're keeping yourself just like, I'm just going to do my thing. And as long as I don't bounce any checks or get myself into trouble, I'm going to be okay. But you might bounce checks or get yourself into trouble if you are avoiding it that much. It depends on where you're at. But
no.
But the other thing is that it could be costing you peace. Because one of the things that I noticed when I was doing financial planning, is that people would come in and like, let's say they would be shy and embarrassed about like what they had or what they didn't have, what they thought they didn't have. Like, I know I should be farther along by now. And I really I haven't saved much and I know I should have been doing more. And, they're like afraid to come talk to a financial person because they feel like they haven't done enough, right? Well, once you go through that financial planning process and you understand where you are, there's clarity and there's peace in just that alone. So even if like you're really far behind and you're like, wow, I was right and I haven't done enough. And, retirement is farther out than I thought it was, or buying that house is farther out than I thought it was because I am further behind. But you know what? I feel so much better now that I know where I'm at and I know where I want to go and I know what I need to do. And that is powerful just to have that feeling and that clarity. So one of the things that I do, because financial planning itself, I'm building courses. We'll talk about that later. But one of the concepts that I have is MeMoney. And it's about putting yourself as a line item on your budget so that you allow yourself either to spend on yourself, or you start putting intention around how you spend on yourself. And for an avoider, having that bucket of MeMoney just helps them like connect and be intentional without shame or stress, so that it's not like that. You don't get that anxiety when you're spending money.
Hey there, beloved listener. It's Jen here, and I'm popping in with a quick invitation just for you. I know how hard it can be to navigate your career, especially in a world of work that's constantly changing. That's why I created The Gathering Ground. It's an insider circle for steady, heart-based support to help you grow with clarity, confidence, and community. Inside The Gathering Ground membership, you're invited to join us for weekly office hours to ask questions and stay grounded, exclusive pricing on one-on-one coaching, seasonal goal setting and reflection workshops. You'll receive a secret monthly newsletter with fresh tools and inspiration. There's a growing library of networking scripts, checklists, and career development tools designed to support you throughout your career. And best of all, a kind, generous community of professionals who just get it. So whether you're staying, shifting, or starting fresh, this is your space to be supported and stretched in the best way possible. It's just $97 to join, then $27 a month. Flexible, affordable, and no long-term commitment. To get started, head on over to flourish.careers/community and answer a few quick questions. Based on your responses, I'll send you a personalized development plan so you can begin right away with clear human support. No bots, no templates, just thoughtful guidance to move forward with confidence. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy, and healthy career. I cannot wait to see you on the inside. Now, back to the episode. You have to tell us more about the MeMoney. But first, two things that jumped out at me in that conversation. One is around the avoider. It's just stressful. It's boring. Like all of the things you said was all of me. But it's not to the point that I don't look at it, because I have to, and I look at it and everything's fine, but it's just not my thing. So one of the things that you said that really helped me kind of feel better about that was that it could potentially be costing you your peace. So knowing, the numbers, which I feel like I have a good grasp on the numbers, so I don't avoid it completely, but knowing the numbers, knowing what's happening with everything, it let my shoulders drop when you said that. And so I think that that's a really big piece of this, is thinking about like, hey, you could feel less stressful. You could feel more peaceful having a conversation with somebody that's an expert that can help you and not judge you, and, have a smart conversation. It can take some of that anxiety, that stress, that avoidance away. So thank you for sharing that. And then we need to talk about the MeMoney, because this is fabulous. So tell us more. So it's a line item on the budget. It could probably be $20 a week or a month. It could be $200. So tell us more about that and like how it plays out in real life.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say, I'm so glad you said that your shoulders dropped, because there you go. That's it. Like you just relaxed about money.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
So I love it. And I also want to say there's no wrong money personality. The idea behind all of the stuff that I teach is that you put you into the aspect of it. So you're not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. If you try to budget and you fail because of whatever reason, it's because you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You're trying to do something that someone else is telling you, but it has nothing to do with you and the way you think about money. So going into then MeMoney, it's based around the concept of, yes, you pick a number that is for you. We're talking about money that you spend on yourself and on yourself only. So it's something that benefits just you. And if you're single, it works for you too, even though it sounds like I'm always talking about partners or couples. But the idea is you find a number. And I start with a basic, like just pick a number, an easy number, like figure out what you spent over 2 weeks on yourself, track it, and then, create an average and start with that number. Because the MeMoney number is actually going to be evolving with you as you go. So it's not like you pick a number and then you're stuck with it forever. But the idea is you find this number and you say, this is how much I'm paying myself, whether you pay yourself monthly, you pay yourself with every paycheck you get, however you do it. And you actually open a separate bank account. So your money is completely separate. And now that is and hopefully you open a savings account too, because you need to save for things that might come up that you want to spend. But the idea is that is your budget for just you. And this is without even thinking about all the rest of the money stuff. So it just simplifies this one part of your budget. So you have this number that's just for you, and that's what you're allowed to spend. So when you do this, like, let's say that you're the avoider, right? Now you have intention and you have to think about what you're spending on yourself. You have to think about it because you only have this little bucket or big bucket. You have this bucket. That makes it sound bad. You have this bucket, but here's the thing. You're going to think, before you do things, you're going to think more about them. So you're going to think about what you value, right? So you're like, if I say yes to buying this thing now, I'm going to be saying no to something later. So maybe you want to save it instead of saying yes now. But on the other hand, if you're a person who doesn't spend on themselves like I was, where I was like, oh, I can't afford that. I would never buy that. I would never spend that for myself. Now I'm buying things that I would have never bought, like for the first 55 years of my life, I would have never spent. I would have never bought that. I would have put it on a gift list. I would have said, hey, can you get this for me? Because I would not spend this money on myself, even though I really want it. Now I'm buying those things because I can. But I'm also making better choices, because instead of buying $10 things, I'm like, no, I don't want those $10 things. I want the $100 thing. But in the past, I would have never justified spending $100 on it. But I could justify 10 things for $10.
Right. This is so good. There's so much goodness in this. I love this piece of guidance. So the intentionality, I love when you said it makes the avoider think about it. So you have to be intentional about it. And then the other piece that really jumped out is this idea around values. And so we talk about values a lot around here. And one of the things that I really value is high quality. And I've always valued high quality, but high quality equals dollars. And so if I had my MeMoney account where I'm intentionally putting money away and then it adds up and I have, that value of high quality, then I buy the $100 thing versus the $10 things. And knowing that about yourself, I think can be really helpful. So thank you for sharing that example. Now let's talk a little bit more about values. When you talk about money and values, like what does it look like when someone's money mindset or their money aligns with their values?
It looks like you're just understanding how you spend money and why you spend money. And so you're making better choices. So by creating MeMoney and putting yourself as a line item on a budget, you're not restricting yourself. You're giving yourself space to put yourself first and decide what you're choosing to spend your money on, not what I can or can't spend. What am I choosing for myself? And that's self-care and that's self-prioritization.
The self-prioritization piece is so critical. And I talk with folks about this so often because the other side of this and time and money, I think, go hand in hand. Sometimes that's a whole nother conversation, but people don't want to prioritize themselves when it comes to time either. And so I talk to folks that really want to make a change in their career, but everything else comes first before themselves. So same thing here. Prioritize yourself first because you matter and your why matters around money and your intentionality around money matters. And so I think that that's really critical to understand your why and understand your values around money because then you can be more intentional and understand. And this takes time to figure out. And it also takes a little bit of, I want to use self-awareness, but it's even more than that. Like it took a little while for me to say, like, I value quality. I value beautiful things, not in an aesthetic sense, but like in a quality sense. And it took me a while to actually like say that. And I'll just tell you a quick story. Growing up, my mom always told me that I had a beer wallet and champagne taste. And so that story always comes up when I think about money. Although I would say that I definitely don't have a beer wallet at this time. But this MeMoney and knowing your values and knowing your intentionality can help you kind of move beyond these stories, understand your value and where you're intentionally spending your money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's we're talking about the beer money and the champagne taste right now. And we're saying that you can afford the champagne taste. You just might have to sacrifice some other things. But when you put intentionality around it, it's not about restriction. It's about what you value and what's worthy of your money.
Exactly.
Is that beer worthy of your money, or are you going to wait for the champagne?
I'm waiting for the champagne every time. So I wanted to shift gears for 1 second because I've also, and this took me a long time to kind of figure out on my own, but I also think of abundance as so much more than just money. So I think of abundance as things like my time. I actually value my time more than my money, energy, spaciousness, freedom. So there's this like broader sense of abundance. And then also this notion of enough, like what does enough mean to you? Because you said earlier about the lifestyle. I think when people start getting more, they change their lifestyle to have more and maybe never get enough because of that. So I don't know, there's something there. Can you share more your thoughts on that?
Sure. So there's a couple things there. So first of all, abundance is definitely not just money. It is feeling the abundance to me is the feeling of that you have enough and not just money, but you have enough. You have enough fulfillment in your life. You feel fulfilled. Your family's happy. You're happy. You have, you're comfortable with money. I mean, when I did financial planning, my talk to people was always about like, what is it that you want in retirement? And a lot of times people couldn't say what that was. And I would say, is it carefree? Is that the word you're looking for? And they were like, yes, it's carefree. And to me, that's a big part of abundance. And it's not that you don't care or that you have like money that you can do whatever you want. It's just you want to feel comfortable. You want to feel like I've got this, like everything's smooth sailing. And that to me is more abundance. And then you also mentioned about how like when you get more money, like your lifestyle changes. And that's called lifestyle creep. And it's a huge thing. And one of the things that I always mention to people, and I do still now in my courses, but in working with people, is when you get a raise or a promotion, you want to take part of that and save that. Either it goes to you putting more money into your emergency fund that you're building, or you're putting more money into your retirement account, or you're starting to save if you haven't yet. But you don't automatically just put all of that in your pocket and start spending it. Because what's going to happen is your lifestyle is going to keep creeping, and you are going to get behind because you're not going to be saving. Because the bigger lifestyle you have, the more you have to save, the more you need in your emergency fund, the more you need in your retirement fund. So as your lifestyle creeps, you need to be sure that you're not just allowing everything to go into your pocket and into what you're spending now.
Yes, there's so much in here now too. So the carefree felt really lovely when you said that. And it's around being comfortable and what does that look and feel like for you? And so I think that for folks listening, really dissecting that and understanding what that looks like for you. I think it's really smart and thoughtful guidance to think about this. If you get a promotion at work, if you get a bonus, if you get something unexpected, if you get a new role and double your salary, think about what goes with that and where you can start saving and that compound interest in the market, or even a high net or high value savings account or 401k. I always say, like, put more in your 401k. And if your company matches, it's free money. Like, there's so many things that you could put that money towards versus just continuing to build a lifestyle that may or may not bring you joy and a carefree in the long run. So can you walk us through kind of the emotional side of a financial transformation? So like if someone's feeling like kind of down about themselves and where they are financially, and then you start working with someone and it kind of goes beyond the numbers, like what does that transformation look or feel like for somebody?
It's different for everybody. So in my money mindset course, one of the things that I do in this course is just about your mindset. Although I do weave the mindset stuff in throughout the actual financial courses too. But in the money mindset course, one of the things that we do is we talk about our stories that we had growing up. And so this is the things that we experienced. So the biggest thing that I can say for people is if you think about to your earliest experiences with money, what were they about? So for me, my earliest experiences with money were my parents did not talk about money. I knew that we were living paycheck to paycheck and not saving, but I didn't really even know what that meant. Like there wasn't really anything that said like that was wrong or that was right. I just knew that there was stress around money. I could feel it, even though there wasn't necessarily arguments or anything that I can really remember back to. But I also was not given an allowance. So like most people my age were given an allowance and they had specific chores they needed to do. That was not how my world worked. My world was, if you want to make some money, you figure out what you want to do, and then you tell me how much you think that I would tell my parents how much I thought I want to get paid, and then they would negotiate and say, well, I think it's worth this, or I think it's worth that. And then I would go do the work. So a couple of things to unpack here from my story. Number one, and I literally just realized this a couple of weeks ago because I was having this conversation with someone. I was like, oh my God, I just uncovered something from my own money story that I've been talking to people about for years. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I just learned something new. This is where my entrepreneurial vision comes from, because I can sit here and work and do all these things for myself. And it feels right to me. But when I'm sitting and earning a paycheck and I'm doing somebody else's thing and I have all this structure around me, it's just yucky to me. And I'm like, I just came across this. I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Okay. So there's that. But then also the idea that all of those things put together is where I was. Work hard, earn your money, spend your money. I only worked when I wanted money to spend. So I wasn't consistently working. I was like, oh, I want to go do this. Let me do a bunch of jobs so I can make some money and go spend it. There was no consistent income coming in where I had allowance and I had certain jobs I needed to do. It was just whenever I wanted money. And then seeing my parents just live paycheck to paycheck, I was living paycheck to paycheck from the very beginning, from when I started earning money as a kid. Paycheck to paycheck, no idea of savings.
Wow, that's really interesting too. And I loved how you are continuing to learn about yourself. And I feel the same way. Just this conversation even has sparked some moments for me too. And so thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let me ask you this. So once you notice these stories about yourself, so kind of like what we were talking about before, you notice these stories, you understand how you grew up and how money was talked about or not talked about, then what happens? So you notice it, then what? Like, or which course like kind of walks you through what to do once you figure that piece out?
So that would be the money mindset course. So what you do then is you have to, this is where the introspection comes in, and you start understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it. So for instance, I had someone who was actually in her late 60s or maybe even 70 years old in my money mindset course. I'm redoing it right now, but this is a couple years ago. And she talked about how when she grew up, her mom always was dressed to the nines and like spent money on herself all the time. But this woman as a child, her mom was always looking great, but she only got to go shopping once a year when it was back to school time. So it was like by the time school time came around again, it was like all of her clothes where she was outgrown, they were all worn. And then it was like a big deal for her to go and get new clothes. And so as I had her tell me the story in this group, like she's sharing the story, the light bulb goes off for her. And she's like, oh my God, I've been spending money on everybody else and not myself because I don't feel like I deserve it. And it was like, I mean, at 70 years old or close to that, it clicked. And she was like, I've been doing that my whole life.
Wow. I have chills.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's a simple story, and it's just telling your story out loud, which is how I figured out my whole entrepreneurial thing, where I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. Like I just figured it out, like literally like a couple weeks ago, because somebody else was asking me the questions and talking to me, about it. And I started telling the story. I was like, whoa, light bulb. So, you can still find other things, but it's stories like that and then the idea is that you start noticing it. Because now that you've named it and you've identified it, you see where it's happening. And you're like, okay, I'm doing it again. I'm spending on other people and not myself. And that's, a great place for MeMoney to come in too.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So it's naming it, noticing it, and then making the change when you're noticing it. So as we wrap up here, what would you say one tiny step someone could take literally today to start either building more confidence with money or better money mindset? What could they do today?
I would say talk to someone about money. Talk to them about your early money stories and start understanding what makes you tick with money, or journal about it. Just start really asking yourself some good questions to get that introspection. And then start also noticing, another thing you could do is start noticing when you're spending money or not spending money and what the emotions are behind that.
Yes, I could see that, because sometimes we're just like on autopilot going through the day. But if we kind of pause, notice how we're feeling about something, check the emotion, maybe jot it down, and just kind of gathering that information about yourself to make the most informed decisions when it comes to shifting your mindset.
Yeah.
And then maybe one other tiny step someone could do is start their MeMoney, their MeMoney account.
Absolutely. Start your MeMoney account. Figure out what you're spending on yourself or what you think you're spending on yourself. Pick a number, open that separate account, start working with it. Make sure it's not too much so that you're not overextending yourself, and adjust it as you go. Maybe it's too little, but find that number. And it's just the idea that you start putting intention around it and you have clarity and you can start choosing what you value and understanding more of your emotions around money. It does so much.
It does. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Now, my favorite question that we ask everybody, a flourishing favorite. So a book or a podcast or a resource that really has had a significant impact on you and your career, and why you would recommend it to listeners. And I know you had mentioned John Maxwell, so you can say that again, or is there another one?
I'm going to say Think and Grow Rich.
Ooh, yeah. Good one.
Yeah, because, people these days talk so much about manifesting. And Think and Grow Rich is a little bit about manifesting, and it's a classic, and it is about manifesting, but it's not just about manifesting. It's about manifesting, doing the hard work, being intentional, having grit and tenacity, and at the same time, knowing that you're going to get there. Like having that feeling and like being in that vibration of that future thing that you're working toward. It's so much more. So and you could read it. I've read it twice. I probably should read it again because I think every time you read it, you could get something different from it.
Yes, yes, and yes. That belief in yourself and that growth mindset is so critical with any of this. So yes, we will definitely add that to the notes. So Linda, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and all this wisdom around money and money mindset. It has been such a delight. Where can people connect with you online?
Thanks, Jen. They can connect with me on the easiest thing is to go to my website because then you can have all my social links and whatever else there. So it's lindagriz.com, LINDAGRIZ.com. And then on the resources page, I want to point out there's that money personality test that you talked about or quiz that they can take. Now it's not a test. There's no wrong answer. There's no pass or fail. So it's not a test. Sorry. It's just an assessment or a quiz that kind of gives you an idea of where you're at. And then there's also a bunch of other downloads. And one of them I wanted to point out to your listeners is there's one that's called, What Issues Should I Consider If I Get a Promotion or Raise? And it talks specifically about the money part of it. So about tax planning, about cash flow and budgeting, about retirement, checking in on your insurance, things like that people sometimes don't think about when they get that promotion or raise. And they're like, oh, I have more money coming in. Like I said before, they just get that lifestyle creep. But this gives you some things to think about. So something that your listeners might be interested in downloading. It's free.
Excellent. Thank you, Linda. And we will make sure all of those links are in the show notes. And yes, it is a quiz. It reminds me of the old school magazine quizzes where you have to answer and then it gives you like all the insight on your personality. So I thought it was really fun. If it said test, I probably wouldn't have done it because I have test anxiety. So thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, it's definitely not a test. There's no wrong money personality. The biggest thing is that you have one. Everybody has one. And you just need to understand it to help you understand what you do with money and what you can do differently to lean into that personality, not change.
Yeah, right. It's a great place to start for sure. So listeners, as always, the notes from today's episode will be on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.